Wisconsin Broadcasters Association Hall of Famer Bob Berry ruled Milwaukee's airwaves in the 60s and 70s. He spoke with countless musicians and celebrities over the years. Bob collected remarkable recordings of these encounters, which he's now sharing with the public. Here's Bob.
This podcast is sure to wake up some TV memories. If you grew up in the 60s and 70s, you'll remember the famous catchphrase, speedy delivery. It was used by the postman on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. David Newell played the part of Mr. McFeely. He was originally in the public relations department for the program and then was cast as Mr. McFeely. The name was Fred Rogers' middle name, taken from his mother's maiden name. Newell toured the country promoting the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood until he retired in 2015. David talks about a Mr. Rogers Christmas program that caused some controversy.
Well, every afternoon the kids get in front of the television set and they hear,
"It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine?"
And of course one of the neighbors and one of the helpers there on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is Mr. McFeely. Bring any mail, Mr. McFeely?
I did. I brought some mail, some speedy deliveries from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. David Newell is also with Mr. McFeely and is a very close friend of...
I guess you could say the one and the same.
He is how much is David Newell a part of the Mr. McFeely character?
I think I'm a lot of Mr. McFeely. I play, as I guess your listeners can tell now, I play Mr. McFeely. My name is David Newell on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. This is the 15th year I've been on the program. Fred's celebrating his 30th year in children's television.
I know. We talked to him a couple of months, or about a month ago, I think.
That's right. I think you did, on when we had a new program on food coming up, I think. And, but I have a lot of... Fred writes the programs. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He's the...
he writes all of them?
He writes all the programs, and he knows a lot of my hobbies, one being I collect films, a lot of old-time movies, and a lot of that is written to the Mr. McFeely character. I myself speak very fast, and Fred, when I first was interviewed for the job, he said, well, you talk very fast, I think I'll make you the speedy delivery man or something. But I also do the PR for the program, too, so I do a lot of visiting of the public stations, and I'm here visiting Channel 10 this weekend, so thought we'd go over and say hello to Bob Berry.
Great. How did you get the job?
Well, I was in children's theater before 15 years ago in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we take Mr. Rogers, and a friend of mine heard that the program at that point was just a regional program. It was going nationally, to the national hookup, and they said, Mr. Rogers is expanding his job. Sears and Roebuck's Foundation helped us get off the ground with support money, and I started as the master of props. I was in charge of all the props. We were doing 130 programs that first year, 130 half hours.
Wow.
And I was hired to staff of 4 at that point. Plus, he said, I would like you to do this one character, which was Mr. McFeely, and that's how I got the job, and here I am 15 years later.
Do you do any other characters?
No, basically. I did one puppet.
Or voices?
No, one puppet voice at one point, which is now no longer on the program, Dr. Frog, and he's no longer with Maybe Fred was trying to tell me something.
You mentioned 130 half hours. How long does it take to make one show?
It takes, I think, I guess it takes a week to make 2 weeks of programs. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, well, it's quite a few hours
just
to make a half hour.
In other words, to make a half hour program, it probably takes us 24 hours, I guess, something like that.
Which one of the programs has brought the most response? Which one of your themes?
I think we did a program once on Santa Claus. Not saying that there was no Santa Claus, heaven forbid, but people thought we were saying that. Fred brought a Santa Claus costume into the studio and said, this is a costume. And what he was trying to say is that a lot of children are afraid of Santa Claus. And they cry when, you've seen kids cry.
Sure,
and he was trying
I remember mine did.
He was trying to keep the loving part of Santa Claus, but saying that he wasn't saying there was no Santa Claus. But what he was saying is that when children may think that Santa Claus can see you when you're sleeping and knows when you've been bad or good, he said, that's not true. Santa Claus does not see your innermost thoughts. What he was saying is he was trying to tell children that you don't have to tell people your innermost thoughts. Your thoughts are your own, and no one can see what you're thinking. I don't know if I'm getting too psychological here, but I think basically that program brought the most response. But he was not saying, and Fred Rogers would never say there's no Santa Claus. He was trying to put it in perspective. I guess that's what he was doing. But some people thought we were saying...
Yeah, there are a lot of people, a lot of radio announcers, a lot of television announcers, including Johnny Carson, that mimic Mr. Rogers. Does he take offense with that?
Not when it's a satire like Johnny or Eddie Murphy do. In fact, Fred was on David Letterman's show one night, which tapes in the same building that Saturday Night Live does. So between the rehearsals, we went up to Saturday Night Live and knocked on Eddie Murphy's dressing room door, and he opened it, and there was standing Fred, the person, and Eddie Murphy was really taken back, and we went back one more time, and Eddie and Fred have met, and so has Johnny Carson and Fred, and he laughs along with the rest, and some parodies get a little heavy sometimes, but he likes what Johnny and Eddie Murphy do.
Mm-hmm. You've got so many viewers here on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. The young people, when you go out and make personal appearances and that, I imagine these kids just worship you. How do you take that? How do you feel?
Well, I think that I am lucky in the respect that I have a costume. So when I have my costume off, no one really knows who I am. I walked into the studio today and...
I did a double take, right?
Yeah, I don't look like
Where's
Mr.
McFeely?
But tomorrow I'm going to be at the University of Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee at the Student Union's having a children's party. And I'll be there for that.
Oh, terrific.
And it's sort of an annual event now. I come every year around the 15th of December, and we have a little party at the university. And my children, for instance, I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they accept me as, when I have my costume on Mr. McFeely, when they're used to me, I take them to a lot of appearances. Mm-hmm. And I think when I have my costume off, I just go about my business, and I enjoy working on the neighborhood. And what I really enjoy is coming to things like the university tomorrow and meeting the kids who watch the program, because you learn so much. Mm-hmm. You know, you do a program for 4 walls like this. You know, you don't see anybody. Yeah. And then you go out.
Oh, you have to get that response.
Yeah, you get the response.
That's important when you're in this business.
You get it too. But
sure.
But when you're sitting here, you think, oh, well, I'm talking to myself. No one knows I'm on the air. But when you go out, you get it, and that's what I like.
Right. Now, is there any way that people can see him? Is this closed invitation?
Well, it wasn't an invitation. It was open, but I think they've sold out. There are a few more tickets left, I think, but you'd have to call and they're probably going to hate me for saying this, but you can call the Student Union to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and I think there might be a few left, but it's almost sold out, so I don't want to be too encouraging. Mm-hmm. It's a Christmas party with Santa will be there, and they're having a breakfast, and they have Mr. McFeely, and it's quite a nice event that the university puts on every year, and I'm part of that event.
Great. And Corinne is here from Channel 10, and I imagine you're doing a little something with Channel 10 while you're here?
Today we're spreading the word about the joys and pleasures of watching Channel 10. And Corinne Kuntz has been the publicity director for many years there and is taking me around Milwaukee, and we're visiting different stations and spreading the word about Mr. Rogers and Channel 10.
All right. It's great to have you with us. Thank you very much, David, and Mr. McFeely.
And can I say one thing? Speedy delivery and happy holidays.
If there's anything you want, if there's anything you need, McFeely's Delivery brings it to you here with speed. Yes, our speedy delivery is a speedy delivery. A speedy delivery to you. Speedy delivery.
Bob Berry.
Thank you for listening to Bob Berry's Unearthed Interviews. Be sure to subscribe and rate our podcast on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts. You can find all the episodes at WisconsinBroadcastingMuseum.org. Check out Bob Berry's book, Rock and Roll Radio Milwaukee. Book sale proceeds support Angels Kids Fund and Donate Life Wisconsin. The preceding program was made possible by a generous contribution from Terry Bond.